Louise Banks has a daughter and sees her grow into a teenager before succumbing to a rare and incurable sickness. She is sad, and her life has been irrevocably altered. Louise works as a linguist professor at a nearby university. She observes the commotion as she walks to her first lesson in the morning. She greets her students, but they are too preoccupied with their phones to pay attention. Breaking news is being shown on television. 9 mysterious flying objects have been discovered in various areas throughout the world. When she comes home, people are being evacuated, and the military will take over. According to the report, 12 of the mysterious objects have landed. She stays in her workplace the next day and watches live updates. Just then, 2 men walk into her office. Colonel Weber from Army Intelligence here. Weber informs her that she is the preferred translator. He plays her audio of a person speaking to a snarling creature. Louise recognizes the speaker as an extraterrestrial, but she cannot interpret it until she is in the same room as the speaker. Weber is skeptical since the research center is just for persons with top security clearance. As he leaves, she asks if they're going to ask Danvers next, another linguist, and tells him that before they commit to him, ask him to translate war to Sanskrit. Louise awakens later that night to see a helicopter on her property. Danvers' translation failed, thus Weber has returned. Weber recognizes Louise as his greatest bet. Louise joins the team and meets theoretical physicist Dr. Ian Donnelly. Weber informs her that the first step is to figure out what they want and where they're coming from. Dr. Kettler gives them vaccine injections at the Montana location. Louise discovers that all of the human sites are conversing with one another. She meets CIA agent Halpern, who informs her that they haven't acquired much information from the item since it landed. Louise and Ian are wearing hazardous suits. They form a small group and proceed to the pod. Every 18 hours, a door opens and the crew enters through a platform. Louise looks in astonishment as they enter the pod, feeling the profound absurdity of the scenario. When the platform's capacity is reached, the team dives through a tunnel and floats to a light. Louise pauses, but Weber takes her and leads her through the antechamber. A glass wall separates them from the beings within the main area. The crew installs a caged bird on the floor, signaling that the oxygen levels in the area are safe as long as the bird is alive. Behind the glass, 2 enormous beasts arrive. They call the aliens heptapods, due to their 7 limbs. The session is quickly over, and they're brought to the disinfection room. Weber tells Louise and Ian that they have 2 hours to figure something out. They listen to the news and watch the world burns down in lockdown, riots, and cult rituals. The following day, Louise brings a whiteboard and a pen, explaining that they may be unable to comprehend their spoken language, but they may have a written base of the language they are speaking. Louise draws the word human inside the pod, and comes forward to show them. One of the heptapods produces a circle sign after a few seconds. It keeps drawing, giving the squad their first breakthrough. Weber wonders if this is the best way. Louise justifies her method, claiming that if the heptapods are not taught English, there would be a lot of confusion and things will take much longer. Weber agrees for the time being but asks that she provide a list of terms before the next session. The administration is concerned that other nations would follow General Shang and China's unfriendly decision. Louise returns to the pod and introduces herself. Louise steps forward and removes her hazmat gear, sensing the heptapod's perplexity. The crew panics, but she reassures them that everything will be all right and proceeds with her plan. She approaches the screen and places her palm on the glass. One of the heptapods follows her, and they reintroduce themselves properly. Ian unzips his hazmat suit and greets everyone. She inquires as to their identities, and each of the heptapods draws their name on the glass. Later, Louise has her first dream about her daughter. Weber authorizes the operation to continue despite the contamination concerns because of the success of the session. Meanwhile, the soldiers are terrified since they have no idea what they are up against. Louise has another dream about her daughter that night. They're in a field, looking at flowers and collecting rocks from a nearby creek. Louise and Ian will continue their investigation over the following few weeks. Aside from being seen and heard, the heptapods leave no trace. They believe the pods communicate without being detected. Learning that there is no association between what a heptapod says and what a heptapod writes was one of Louise's earliest discoveries. She also discovers that the heptapod's lettering reflects meaning rather than sound. Their writing is neither forward nor backward. Louise and Ian compose their first response. They are currently focusing on extending their vocabulary, which will take another month. Louise and Ian hang out in the back of a pickup vehicle overlooking the pod one night after a session. Ian admires her brilliance and will to persevere, and they discuss their personal lives briefly. Louise believes it is now entirely up to them. The looting and riots continue especially after a leaked photograph of the aliens goes viral. The tensions around the site worsen as well, with some soldiers thinking it's better to shoot first before the alien attack. Louise continues to fantasize about her daughter. She explains why she and her father are no longer together, but her daughter insists it's all right. Ian interrupts her daydream and she steps outside to get some fresh air. She considers her again. This time, she sees her daughter as a youngster and then as a sick adolescent. Louise is alone in her room with Ian, who has a theory. Immersion in another language has been shown to rewire the brain. When Louise looks up, a heptapod appears in her room. Louise awakens in her bed, grateful that it was all a nightmare. She meets with Weber to do a Mandarin translation. A discussion with General Shang was picked up by their satellite. According to Louise, each of the 12 is a promising superior technology, and their research team is working to decipher the sets. She doesn't grasp the words suits, honor, and flowers. He informs her that China deployed soldiers an hour ago, and Russia is already following suit. Louise finds that the sentences correspond to mahjong tile sets, and discovers that they're communicating with their heptapods through a game. She expresses her concern since every talk is turning into a game with resistance, triumph, and failure. Weber directs her to raise the key question of whether or not they are prepared. Louise inquires about the heptapods as to their function. One answers with the message offer weapon. Back at the location, an altercation breaks out. Louise believes that the heptapods may not recognize the difference between a weapon and a tool, and that with the human language being so sophisticated, one can sometimes be both. Ian adds that they have no idea if the heptapods are giving a weapon or trading. According to Halpern, this is how the aliens split them and make them battle amongst themselves. Louise and Ian feel lost when the council disbands. China and Russia both received the identical message and misinterpreted it as a threat, cutting off connection with the other pod locations. Louise believes that this will exacerbate the problem, and that they must communicate. Fearing the looming threat, many troops at the pod staged a mutiny, planting explosives in the chamber that would detonate in 10 minutes. One of the soldiers tries to stop them as they enter the pod, but they finally let them go, even knowing that the explosion will eliminate them. Louise inquires about the aliens and whether they are providing anything to the humans. The heptapods respond with phrases such as technology, guests, and friends. She then requests that they provide the technology immediately. The second alien suddenly begins tapping on the glass. Louise moves forward, thinking it wants her to write something on the screen. She starts writing with both palms on the glass. She dreams about her daughter once more. The other alien leaves a slew of symbols once they finish writing. There are gunshots. When the countdown runs out, the alien forces them out of the chamber just as the bombs detonate. When Louise awakens, she has a concussion. She searches for Ian and discovers him in the main room. She informs them that they must return to the heptapods and explain what occurred. Weber claims that it is impossible since his orders have shifted. They must flee and prepare for battle. Their chat is cut short by rumbling. The pods rise thousands of feet above the ground. Later that night, China declares war on the intruders. Louise notices her daughter talking about parties and adolescent issues while she is at work. She awakens to discover that Ian has achieved a breakthrough. The sign of time can be found everywhere. He then calculates the message negative space and determines that it means 1 of 12. Louise informs the council that the message is 1 of 12 and that they must interact with the other locations to piece it together. Halpern cuts her off and tells her it's pointless since everyone is ready for confrontation. He then plays a Russian-made tape. There is no time, the aliens said in their parting message. Then emerge into one. The video concludes with gunshots. Halpern remains antagonistic, questioning how they intend to persuade the other sites to contribute their data. Ian proposes providing their data without making any requests. Louise drifts away and leaves. She approaches the pod, and the pod, shockingly, sends a craft down. She fights to breathe on the inside until her lungs normalize. She finds herself in the fog-filled area beyond the glass wall. The alien approaches and informs them that their buddy was eliminated in the blast. She bursts into tears and apologizes on behalf of mankind. She then requests that the heptapod communicate with the other locations. It instructs Louise to use her weapon, but she is baffled. It states their goal is to aid mankind since they will need it in 3,000 years. She inquires as to how they know the future. She is startled to see her daughter. They're out in the field, having fun in the stream. Louise is perplexed and inquires about the girl. Louise's visions about her daughter turned out to be premonitions rather than dreams. The alien vanishes into the fog. As the pod flips sideways, Louise is expelled to safety. A convoy approaches and she is taken. Her daughter wonders why her father no longer looks at her in the same manner. Louise feels conflicted but tells her it's because she told her father something that he wasn't prepared for, a rare and incurable disease. In the present, Louise understood why her future husband left her. Meanwhile, all the pods turn sideways and the entire planet is preparing for war. Her future kid asks why her name is Hannah. Louise informs her that her name is unique because it is a palindrome, which means that even when spelled backward, it still says Hannah. She dreams of writing a book about the alien language and teaching it to others. She ultimately realizes that the aliens' weapon is their language, which they shared with humans. Their language opens up time, and once you learn it, you begin to view time in a non-linear manner, allowing you to glimpse into the future. She informs Ian and Weber, but Weber informs her that the task is complete. Louise has another foreboding feeling. She's at the United Nations for a gala, and General Shang claims he merely came to meet her. He tells her that 18 months ago, she did something even his superiors were unable to do and changed his mind. The general shares his private number. He then tells her she said something to him that he will never forget. She had heard his wife's final words. Louise returns to the spot and obtains Agent Halpern's satellite phone. She dials General Shang's phone number. Security is notified, and she is confronted. Louise flees and hides in the disinfecting room. General Shang answers the phone, and she explains her mission. Ian enters the room and protects her from the troops. She ultimately tells General Shang about her message, which he gets. The call is successful, and she raises her hands in surrender to security. Suddenly, China stops the attack and the other countries follow. The 12 sites then agree to share their data and complete the pieces of the puzzles together. With humanity working as one, the pods retreat. Louise asks Ian if he would change his life if he knew his future. He tells her that the most riveting event in his life was meeting her, not the aliens. They confess their love and she knows this is the face of her future husband. Even though Louise knows her future will lead to Hannah's passing away, she accepts it.